Welcome to episode 46 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Oscar. It's December 16, 1990, at the Camp Nou in Barcelona, a cool Sunday in Catalonia. Johan Cruyff's Barça is still a work in progress, not yet the fully formed dream team that will win 4 straight league titles and a first European Cup. But something important is about to click into place. A skinny 19-year-old from Santpedor starts in midfield in a league game against Cádiz. His name is Pep Guardiola. He's been promoted from Barça B. Cruyff has watched him closely, and now he's giving him a full La Liga start as the pivot in front of the backline. Barcelona win 2-0, goals from Sacchi and José María Baquero, and the appearance goes into records as nothing more dramatic than debut. But if you follow the thread from that afternoon forward, you get a remarkable arc. A ball boy and academy midfielder turned into Cruyff's on-field brain. A player who absorbed ideas from Michels, Cruyff, Sacchi, Gaal, Bielsa, and Lillo. And finally, a manager whose teams at Barcelona, Bayern, and Manchester City have redrawn how football thinks about space, passing, pressing, and control. Today in the pod, we'll trace Pep's path from Santpedor and La Masia to that La Liga debut, set the scene around December 1990 and what Cruyff saw in him, follow him through the dream team, Italy, Qatar, and Mexico, as he collects tactical inferences, track how those ideas turn into the positional play revolution of his coaching career, and ask how much of modern football can be traced back to a teenager anchoring midfield against Cádiz. Pep Guardiola was born in 1971 in Santpedor, a small town in central Catalonia. The story goes that as a boy he'd spent hours kicking a ball against the wall by the village church, almost a cliché, except that in his case you can see the legacy: first touch, angles, timing, repetition. At 13, he enters La Masia, Barcelona's newly formalized youth academy. He later describes the move as a kind of cultural shock, from village football to a residence full of kids obsessed with the ball, in a club already shaped by Michels' pressing and Cruyff's first spell as a player. Early on, Guardiola is used as a right-back. One day, Johan Cruyff, recently back at Barça as coach, watches a youth game at the mini estadi and sees this skinny kid constantly asking for the ball, playing simple passes, directing traffic from fullback. As several accounts tell it, Cruyff turns to his staff and says something along the lines of, "That boy should play in the middle. He has the brain for it." He is moved into central midfield, that position that will define him. Guardiola later says, "I knew nothing about football until I met Johan Cruyff." What he means isn't that he couldn't play before, it's that Cruyff gives him a framework, that space is more important than running, and the ball moves faster than any player. Pressing is about collective distances, not just effort, and possession is a way to control risk, not just to entertain. The teenager from Santpedor is exactly the type of player who thrives on that, not the quickest, not the strongest, but obsessed with where everyone is on the pitch. By 1990, Guardiola is training with the first team, playing for Barça B, and slowly convincing Cruyff he can anchor the senior midfield. So on this day in 1990, Cruyff is in his third year as coach. The shape that will become famous is already there, a 3-4-3 or 4-3-3 hybrid, with a backline comfortable on the ball, 2 advanced interiors, and a single pivot who links everything, receives under pressure, and plays the first pass forward. At 19, Pep Guardiola starts that league game against Cádiz in precisely that role. He is listed as medio on the team sheet, alongside names like Subizarreta, Baquero, Koeman, and Begiristain. Barça win 2-0, with Begiristain scoring early and Baquero adding the second after the break. Guardiola picks up a yellow card, but otherwise does his job with quiet efficiency. There's no viral clip, no spectacular long-range goal. If you watch early footage of him, you mostly see open body shape to receive, first touch away from pressure, vertical passes splitting lines, and constant pointing, telling teammates where to stand. It's not highlight reel material, it's architecture. Cruyff, who always prefers a director to a destroyer at the base of midfield, believes he's found his long-term pivot. Within 18 months, Guardiola is a regular starter. By 1992, he's at Wembley, lifting the European Cup with the dream team. That debut isn't just a young player getting minutes, it's the moment the coach and the pivot lock in, the partnership that will define a decade of Barcelona's style, and later, much of Pep's own coaching philosophy. As the 1990s unfold, Guardiola becomes the number 4 of Cruyff's dream team, the Atletista in front of the defense, flanked by interiors like Baquero and Eusebio, behind forwards like Stoichkov, Laudrup, and later Romario. He's not just playing, he's learning. The inferences stack up. Rinus Michels dodged total football. Michels had already installed pressing, zonal marking, and 4-3-3 at Barça in the 1970s. Cruyff deepens that inheritance, and Guardiola grows up inside it. Johan Cruyff's training sessions are full of rondos, positional games, and constant discussions about superiority, numerical, positional, qualitative. He wants his pivot to offer a passing line at all times, keep the team short and compact, and choose the right tempo. Guardiola, almost by temperament, becomes obsessed with those details. Teammates remember him as someone who would talk endlessly about where the fullback should be and when the centre-back should step in. Then there's Arrigo Sacchi's Milan. Like many players of his generation, Guardiola watches Sacchi's late 80s Milan transform pressing and zonal defending at the highest level. The compact 4-4-2, the offside trap, the collective press. Sacchi's teams show a different way to control games without just keeping the ball. Pep has said that Sacchi's Milan changed football and influenced his understanding of team structure, an influence he later acknowledges alongside Michels and Cruyff. Add inconstant pressure to high-level European football, Serie A giants, Cruyff's Ajax heritage, emerging pressing trends, and you have a midfielder who isn't just executing a role, but storing frameworks. By the mid-90s, Guardiola is Barcelona's on-field organizer. When he is missing, the team's passing rhythm and positional order suffer. When he plays, attacks seem to start in the right spaces at the right time. Even then, you can see the manager in the making. As the decade wears on, the dream team breaks up. Cruyff departs in 1996. Bobby Robson passes through. Then Louis van Gaal arrives with his own rigid Dutch interpretation of 4-3-3. Under van Gaal, Guardiola plays in a more structured positional framework, experiences a coach obsessed with patterns, automatisms, and collective discipline, and lives through both success with 2 more league titles and tension with debates about tempo, risk, and his own role as injuries pile up. It's another lesson. There's more than one way to apply the same underlying ideas, pressing, space, and structure, and the balance between control and freedom is always up for negotiation. By 2001, after more than a decade in the first team, Guardiola leaves Barcelona. He has won 6 La Liga titles, a European Cup, and numerous domestic trophies. But the next phase of his life may be even more important for the coach he becomes. When Guardiola leaves Barca, he doesn't go straight into coaching. Instead, he takes a tour through different football cultures. In Italy, with Brescia and Roma, he experiences Serie A's tactical density firsthand, man-oriented marking, detailed defensive schemes, an intense media spotlight on systems and roles. In Qatar, at Al Ahly, he plays in a league that has become a late career home for many European professionals. There he has the time to play, to read, to talk tactics, to study how different coaches try to organize less structured environments. In Mexico, at Dorados de Sinaloa in 2006, he plays under Lillo, a Spanish coach obsessed with positional play and 4-2-3-1 structures. Guardiola later calls Lillo the best coach I ever had, and says he learned a huge amount from him about spacing, build-up, and how to move the ball out from the back. Around the same time, he makes a famous pilgrimage. He travels to Argentina to visit Marcelo Bielsa at his ranch near Rosario. They talk for hours. Reports vary between 6 and 10 about football, tactics, politics, everything. Later, as Manchester City manager, Guardiola repeatedly calls Bielsa the person I admire the most in world football and the most authentic manager of all time, and says he feels he knows less about the game than Bielsa does. By now, the influences piling up in Pep's head look something like this. Michels and Cruyff, 4-3-3, positional play and pressing. Sacchi, collective movement, zonal defending and pressing triggers. Van Gaal, structure and automatism. Lillo, build-up, spacing, the ball is the main organizer. And Bielsa, intensity, verticality, and the moral seriousness of coaching. Guardiola retires as a player in 2006. Within a year, he's back at Barcelona. Not as a legend doing PR, but as a coach ready to test all of those ideas. In 2007, Guardiola takes over Barcelona B in the Spanish third tier. It's a laboratory. He implements a strict version of juego de posición, positional play, with high pressing, a structured 4-3-3, short build-up from the goalkeeper, and an insistence that every player understands the why of each position, not just the where. He promotes a young holding midfielder called Sergio Busquets and a winger named Pedro, among others. A year later, he's offered the first team job. From 2008 to 12, as Barcelona coach, Guardiola wins 14 major trophies in 4 seasons, including 2 Champions Leagues and 3 La Liga titles. Builds a team around a new generation: Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, and Messi, plus a core of La Masia graduates who know the positional rules almost instinctively, and makes the world talk about possession in a new way. Tactically, if you rewind to that debut in 1990, you can see the continuity and the evolution. The pivot role he plays becomes Busquets' job, dropping between centre-backs, receiving under pressure, always offering a free man. The 3-4-3/4-3-3 hybrid of the Dream Team becomes a more refined 4-3-3/4-1-4-1, with Messi used as a false nine or drifting inside from the right, and pressing, which he learned as a player, is sharpened into a coordinated weapon with the famous 5-second rule after losing the ball. He's still, in essence, doing what he did as a player, organizing the geometry of the game. The difference is that now he does it from the bench, through training sessions and game plans, rather than passes. Guardiola's coaching career doesn't stop with Barcelona. After a sabbatical, he goes to Bayern München in 2013-16, and then to Manchester City from 2016 and onwards. At Bayern, he combines Barca-style positional play with German intensity, experiments with inverted fullbacks, hybrid back threes, and central overloads, and challenges a club used to more direct transitions to embrace build-up and control. At Manchester City, he helped turn the Premier League into a laboratory for positional football, uses full-backs as midfielders, wingers as interior playmakers, and centre-backs as deep playmakers, and wins multiple league titles plus a treble, including the Champions League in 2023. Across those teams, the same principles he learned and refined from 1990 onwards kept showing up. Dominate the ball, use positional structure to create free men, press immediately when you lose it, and treat football as collective chessboard rather than a series of isolated duels. If you look at modern tactical discourse, inverted fullbacks, rest defense, half spaces, overloads, and underloads, a lot of it traces directly or indirectly through Guardiola's teams. And at the root of that is a particular way of seeing the game as something that can be designed. So what exactly happened on this day in 1990? On paper, it was Barcelona 2, Cádiz 0, Guardiola's La Liga debut, and 3 points in the league. But in the longer arc, you can see it as the moment Cruyff publicly commits to a thinking pivot at the heart of his team, and the start of Guardiola's apprenticeship as the on-field extension of a radical football idea. He played that day as a teenager trying to keep his place. He walked off as a player who had just been entrusted with one of the most demanding roles in European football. From there, every step, the Wembley European Cup in 1992, the Van Gaal years, Italy, Qatar, Lillo, Bielsa, Barça B, the sextuple, Bayern and City can be read as variations on a theme first tested under the Camp Nou lights against Cádiz. So how do you control a football match through space passing and collective intelligence? On this day in 1990, a skinny Catalan midfielder started to answer that question on the pitch. And in today's game, you can see the consequences every time a Guardiola team lines up, and the rest of the world tries to work it out how to stop them. That's all for episode 46 of OTD, the day Pep Guardiola made his La Liga debut and began the journey from Cruyff's pivot to football's most influential modern coach. If you got memories, sources, or tactical rabbit holes in Pep as player or manager, then email us at otd@17lawsguy.com, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review so the algorithm can send more tactics nerds our way. Tomorrow, in episode 47, we flip the script to December 2015 and Jose Mourinho's second dismissal from Chelsea, and when the special one ran out of road. Don't miss it.